The streets of downtown Seattle were already crowded as people hurried toward work under the cool morning sky. Ethan Walker, a 38-year-old single father, walked beside his 8-year-old daughter Lily, holding her hand tightly while carrying her school backpack over his shoulder. His faded blue jacket, worn jeans, and dusty work boots showed years of hard labor at construction sites across the city. Despite looking exhausted after another long week of work, Ethan smiled warmly whenever Lily spoke. Every morning before school, they shared breakfast at the same small neighborhood cafe that had become part of their daily routine. The cozy cafe smelled of fresh coffee, warm pancakes, and baked bread. The staff welcomed Ethan and Lily with friendly smiles because they had become familiar faces over the years. Ethan always ordered the least expensive breakfast, making sure Lily had enough to eat before school while he settled for coffee and toast. As Lily happily talked about an upcoming science project, Ethan listened with complete attention, encouraging every dream she shared. Although money was always tight, he never allowed his daughter to feel poor. He believed love, honesty, and hard work were worth more than anything money could buy. Since losing his wife 4 years earlier, Ethan had carried every responsibility alone. He worked long construction shifts during the day, accepted repair jobs on weekends, cooked dinner every evening, and helped Lily finish her homework before putting her to bed. Many nights he slept only a few hours before waking again before sunrise. Bills constantly filled his mailbox, but complaints never escaped his lips. Instead, he focused on giving Lily the best childhood he possibly could. Every sacrifice he made felt worthwhile whenever he saw her smile or heard her laugh across their small apartment. That Tuesday morning, the cafe became unusually busy as office workers and executives filled nearly every table. Expensive suits, polished shoes, and luxury watches surrounded Ethan and Lily's quiet corner booth near the window. While waiting for breakfast, Ethan opened his old leather wallet and carefully counted the few dollars he had left until payday. He silently calculated every expense in his mind before placing the money back inside. Lily noticed his worried expression but smiled anyway, pretending everything was fine because she had learned courage from watching her father face every challenge without fear.
A few moments later, the cafe door opened, and 5 wealthy businessmen entered while laughing loudly about a successful business deal. They ordered premium coffee, expensive meals, and spoke confidently about investments worth millions of dollars. One of them glanced toward Ethan just as he reached into his wallet again to double-check the money for breakfast.
The businessman whispered something to his friends, and within seconds they all began smiling and quietly laughing. They looked at Ethan's worn clothes and rough hands, immediately judging him as someone who had achieved very little in life. Their quiet laughter soon became impossible to ignore. One businessman leaned back in his chair and joked loudly, "Looks like someone barely has enough money for breakfast." Several people inside the cafe became uncomfortable, but no one said a word. Lily lowered her head, embarrassed by the stranger's cruel comments. Ethan remained completely calm. He gently placed his hand over Lily's and smiled. "Hi there. Never judge people by what they wear," he said softly. The strongest people often carry the heaviest burdens without asking anyone for sympathy. The businessmen laughed again, completely unaware that their biggest surprise was only moments away. The businessmen continued laughing while Ethan quietly stirred his coffee as though nothing had happened. Lily tried to ignore the hurtful comments and focused on finishing her pancakes. Around the cafe, customers exchanged uneasy glances, but nobody wanted to confront the wealthy group. The manager pretended not to notice the insults, hoping to avoid trouble. Ethan remained completely relaxed, his eyes calmly scanning the room from time to time. Years of experience had taught him to observe everything without drawing attention. To everyone else, he looked like an ordinary construction worker simply trying to enjoy breakfast with his daughter. Without warning, the cafe door slammed open with a loud crash. A masked man wearing a black hoodie rushed inside, holding a large hunting knife. "Nobody move," he shouted, pointing the blade toward the cashier. Panic instantly filled the room. Coffee cups shattered as frightened customers ducked beneath tables. Several people screamed while others desperately reached for their phones before freezing in fear. The businessmen who had mocked Ethan moments earlier turned pale and backed away from the danger. The attacker demanded cash from the register and threatened anyone who dared to interfere with his escape. Lily looked at her father with frightened eyes, but Ethan's face remained calm. He quietly whispered, "Stay behind me, sweetheart, and don't move." His voice was steady, without even the slightest hint of panic. The masked robber focused entirely on the cashier, never noticing Ethan slowly standing from his chair. Every movement was controlled, silent, and perfectly balanced. The businessman watched in confusion, wondering why the construction worker seemed completely fearless. Before anyone understood what was happening, Ethan had already positioned himself only a few feet away from the armed criminal without making a sound. Everything happened within 2 incredible seconds. Ethan exploded into action with lightning speed. He grabbed the attacker's knife hand, twisted the wrist with precise force, and sent the weapon spinning across the cafe floor. Before the robber could react, Ethan struck his shoulder, swept his legs from beneath him, and pinned him face down against the ground. The criminal struggled desperately, but every attempt failed against Ethan's flawless technique. Customers watched in complete disbelief. The same quiet father who had been insulted only minutes earlier had ended the dangerous situation before anyone else could even stand up. The cafe fell into complete silence except for the sound of the robber breathing heavily on the floor. Someone finally called 911, while Ethan calmly held the attacker in place without showing anger or excitement. Minutes later, police officers rushed inside with weapons drawn. The moment one senior officer saw Ethan, his expression changed completely. "Sergeant Ethan Walker?" he asked in surprise before lowering his weapon. Another officer smiled with respect. "Delta Force, I should have recognized you immediately." The businessmen stared in disbelief as they realized the man they had mocked was an American Special Operations veteran. As paramedics escorted the robber away, the businessmen slowly approached Ethan with embarrassed expressions. Their confident smiles had completely disappeared. One of them quietly apologized for mocking him earlier, admitting they had judged him only by his appearance. Ethan simply nodded without anger. "Character isn't measured by clothes or money," he said calmly. "It's revealed by how you treat people when you believe they have nothing to offer you." Taking Lily's hand, he thanked the cafe staff, paid for breakfast, and walked toward the school. Everyone inside watched silently, knowing they had witnessed a true hero hidden behind the simplest life.